Buddy says he came out for a cigarette. Somebody started blasting.
Somebody went home with an empty clip.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. And if you already knew that, there's a good chance it's because you've watched NBC's long-running police procedural-slash-legal drama, Law and Order, or it's one of roughly 600 spin-offs. Famous for its split perspective between two sets of protagonists, Law and Order not only became one of the biggest shows of the 90s, but also one of the biggest franchises in the history of television. So cue the sound effect. You know the one. This is Timeline Deep Dive, because today we're talking about Law and Order. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below about what other shows you think we should cover. Now, let's call these proceedings to order.
You're in contempt, Mr. McCoy.
It's for the jury to see justice done.
In 1988, Dick Wolf, formerly a writer on Hill Street Blues, came up with a pitch for a show that would spend half of each episode following the police detectives investigating a crime, and the other half following the district attorneys who had to prosecute the offenders. He pitched it to Universal, where an executive pointed out the idea was similar to the short-lived 1963 series Arrest and Trial, which spent its first half following the police and the second half following a defense attorney. Undeterred, Wolf pitched the show to Fox, who immediately ordered 13 episodes, and then immediately changed their minds. So Wolf brought the concept to CBS, who finally ordered a pilot. That pilot would be called Everyone's Favorite Bagman. The case of the week was about political corruption.
You will learn how these men, driven by the basest kind of greed, violated their public trust and conspired with a member of organized crime to murder another public official.
Wolf would audition a slew of actors for the main roles, including future stars like ER's Eric LaSalle and Reservoir Dogs' Michael Madsen. Ultimately, however, he would cast George Zunza and Chris Noth as detectives Greavy and Logan, Michael Moriarty and Richard Brooks as ADA's Ben Stone and Paul Robinette, and Roy Thinnis as District Attorney Alfred Wentworth. For the theme music, Wolf would turn to Hill Street Blues composer Mike Post, who would also create the show's iconic dun-dun sound effect. According to Post, the sound is intended to evoke the clang of a jail cell door slamming, and it was made through a combination of sound effects, including a hammer hitting an anvil and 100 men stomping on a wooden floor. The pilot also features the series' sole on-camera appearance by Steve Zernkilton, the actor who reads the show's opening narration. He has one line.
Look at that. Do you believe these guys?
The pilot would eventually become the 6th episode of the first season, but not on CBS. The network didn't sense any star potential in the cast, so they passed on the series entirely. Rapidly running out of networks to sell to, Wolf offered the show to NBC in 1989. Network bosses Brandon Tartikoff and Warren Littlefield were initially concerned the series wouldn't be able to keep up the intensity of the pilot on a weekly basis, but they also saw potential in it.
You want to win your RICO, you go in with one of the 5 counts having already been proven in state court.
NBC finally ordered a full season of Law & Order in 1990. Due to unavailability, however, Thinnis would be replaced by actor Stephen Hill, playing District Attorney Adam Schiff, and it was the first casting change Law & Order would make, but it would be far from the last. After season 1, Zunza would depart the show and be replaced by Goodfellas actor Paul Sorvino, playing Detective Phil Serretta. He, in turn, would be replaced by Jerry Orbach, playing Detective Lenny Briscoe. Orbach would then stay in his role so long he was literally declared a living landmark by the New York Landmarks Conservancy.
Hey, Briscoe. I don't know how you work, but it's not about donuts.
It is when there's powdered sugar on his blues.
At the end of season 3, the network would ask the producers to add more female regulars. As a result, in season 4, Dan Florrick's Captain Cragen would be replaced by Esapatha Murkinson's Lieutenant Van Buren, and Jill Hennessy's Claire Kincaid would take over for Robinette at the DA's office. Actor Michael Moriarty departed at the end of season 4, but whether he quit or was fired depends on who you believe. The publicly volatile Moriarty claims he quit because Wolf didn't respect his public opposition to limitations on the depiction of violence on television proposed by then Attorney General Janet Reno. It cleared the way for the season 5 arrival of Law & Order's most iconic character next to Lenny Briscoe, Sam Waterston's Jack McCoy. McCoy, whose determination to push the boundaries of prosecutorial ethics, would become something of a mascot for Law & Order.
I'm playing legal tiddlywinks with these punks. What I'd really like to do is take them out to Battery Park and hang them by the scrotum.
And like Orbach, he is considered a living landmark by the city of New York.
Briscoe. Counselor,
out of all the gin joints and all the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
At the end of Waterston's inaugural season, Chris Noth's contract was allowed to expire due to creative differences with Wolf. His character would return in 1998's Exiled, a Law and Order movie, but in the meantime, it made room for Benjamin Bratt's Detective Ray Curtis in season 6. That at least would provide some stability to the police's half of the formula. Briscoe and Curtis would become the show's longest-running detective partners, and together with Van Buren and McCoy, they would serve as the core of the series for some time to come. As it gained popularity during this time, the show also became infamous for its ripped-from-the-headlines storylines that would fictionalize highly publicized real-world cases that were either currently in the news or had been just recently. Among hundreds of others, the show ran episodes inspired by everything from the O.J. Simpson case to the SARS epidemic. Going forward, casting changes would become a fairly regular occurrence on Law and Order. Carrie Lowell, Angie Harmon, Elizabeth Rome, Alana de la Garza, Diane Wiest, and former Senator Fred Thompson all came through the DA's office at some point. Meanwhile, Jesse L. Martin, Dennis Farina, Michael Imperioli, Milena Govich, Jerry Sisto, and Anthony Anderson all had runs on the show as gumshoes. And then there were the guest stars. Law and Order has become legendary for featuring famous actors in small roles before they made it big. Other actors who made some of their earliest TV appearances on Law and Order include Claire Danes, Idris Elba, Jennifer Garner, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Felicity Huffman, and Ellen Pompeo, among many, many others.
What if we told everybody to take a drink if they've ever been in an episode of Law and Order?
Then this whole room would be lit.
With all this success, a spin-off was inevitable. Law & Order Special Victims Unit, or SVU, was inspired by a Season 1 Law & Order episode based on the real-life 1986 murder of Jennifer Levin, widely known as the Preppy murder case. It originally starred Mariska Hargitay and Christopher Maloney as detectives Olivia Benson and Elliot Stabler, and its cast included Dan Florek, reprising his role as Captain Cragen from the original series, as well as Richard Belzer, reprising his role as Detective John Munch from the NBC series Homicide: Life on the Street, which occasionally crossed over with Law & Order, and The Wire, and The X-Files. Munch got around.
Homicide. SVU.
Encouraged by the success of SVU, Wolf decided to take a chance on another spin-off with 2001's Law & Order: Criminal Intent. The show focused on NYPD's Major Case Squad, the squad who work, major cases. It starred Vincent D'Onofrio and Catherine Irby as detectives Robert Gorin and Alexandra Eames and Courtney B. Vance as ADA Ron Carver. The series paid special attention to the motives of the criminal each episode, hence its title. It ran for 10 seasons before working its last case in 2011.
Doesn't fit any of the crackers in the database.
Try a bigger database.
The fourth spin-off was Trial by Jury, which dropped in 2005 and focused almost exclusively on criminal trials and the legal wrangling that goes into them. So technically it was just Order, and it even boasted Jerry Orbach's Lenny Briscoe among its ensemble. Sadly, however, Orbach died of cancer on December 28, 2004. Before any more of the show could be completed. Without him, Trial by Jury was canceled after 1 season.
Your case just got worse.
After 20 seasons and 3 spin-offs, the original Law & Order came to an end on May 24, 2010, when NBC decided to revitalize the franchise with a new cast and location. Law & Order LA starred Alfred Molina, Skeet Ulrich, and Terrence Howard. But while its premiere on September 29, 2010 did well enough, after that, it struggled in the ratings and, like Trial by Jury, would last just 1 season. In 2017, Wolf, likely inspired by the massive success of American Crime Story, created Law & Order: True Crime. Unlike any other previous Law & Order series, True Crime followed a single true-life case for its entire season. The first season was a dramatization of the trial of Eric and Lyle Menendez, starring Edie Falco as defense attorney Leslie Abramson, but the show itself was another one and done. They say the 7th time is the charm, and Law & Order: Organized Crime proved the old adage right when it debuted on April 1, 2021. The, no kidding, 7th spin-off stars Christopher Maloney, reprising his role as Elliot Stabler from SVU, but this time, Stabler works for the Organized Crime Control Bureau. Like True Crime, Organized Crime follows just 1 case per season. But unlike True Crime, Organized Crime is headed into its 5th season in 2025.
I'm getting pretty sick and tired of everybody judging who I was from 12 years ago.
On May 3, 2021, NBC gave a full season order to an 8th spinoff called Law & Order for the Defense. However, just 2 months later, on July 15th, Wolf and the network announced they were scrapping the show to work on something else. That something else was the return of the original Law & Order. The revival would feature Anthony Anderson and Sam Waterston reprising their roles from the original run. Waterston's Jack McCoy would only stick around for 1 season. Waterston is, after all, 84 years old. But the revival itself has carried the original Law & Order into its 24th season.
She did what she had to do, based on her truth. So you tell me what's reasonable and what's right.
Finally, in 2024, Wolf struck out for the Great White North and created Law and Order Toronto: Criminal Intent. And like the original Criminal Intent, it followed the local police department's Major Case Squad. So far, it's unclear whether the Toronto set show shares the same universe with the rest of the Law and Order franchise. But what is clear is that Canadians love it. Its premiere was their #1 rated drama of the year, and it was instantly picked up for a second and third seasons. And even though Richard Belzer passed away in 2023, we wouldn't be surprised if Detective Munch made an appearance. That guy gets around.
You had one hell of a run, Sergeant Munch.
Did I? I don't know where it all went.
So what do you think? What's your favorite Law & Order series? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other Timeline videos.